Hey, folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia Fishing Report with Matt Reilly. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, man. Same old, same old. I'm hot and tired.
And despite we were talking, it's like you're in the land of hit or miss rainstorms in the afternoon. You're in the land of miss, right?
That is true. Yeah, we've had some kind of, I guess you say, sort of regional soakers a couple of times here in the last week, but not really, not enough. I mean, it's been so dry. We get bumps and then we're right back down to, below the seasonal average in a day or two. Just, we're not set up for a viable late summer at this point because things keep getting drier. There's not going to be a whole lot of water anywhere.
Yeah, which gets us to dragging the raft over rocks, right?
That's right. Or running the jet boat in the big water, one or the other.
Yeah. And so, if it's, I imagine then it's clear, it's kind of warm. So, I mean, I would imagine it's probably, getting as technical as it gets when you fish for smallmouth.
Yep. Real low and clear. And, things seem to get more, they can get more technical when things get, as I say, stale, where we just, prior to last week, we just been in the 90s and dry for, weeks. It seemed like, just not ever having a reset or a flush of water or anything. Recently with a couple little rainstorms popping up with these, dog days fronts, it's helped a little bit, but, still just not very much water in the river. We're actually on the big river on the new right now. We're sitting pretty good. Dealt with some stain here recently, but it's definitely been new. They're calling for some rain, next week, and with a big one hopefully happening early in the week. But again, like we were talking about before we started recording, we've been hoping for rain all summer because it's been so dry, and you get excited when you start seeing it forecast. But this is the time of year where it's always in the forecast, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and so I would imagine, I know you're flexible, but we are in the thick of bug season, so I imagine the bug bite's probably pretty good though.
Yeah, when you can get it. I mean, I tend to ride it pretty hard when I feel like I can get away with it, just because myself and most of my clients tend to want to fish that way because now is the time. Kind of starting right about now through early to mid-October is when things are usually pretty hot and heavy. And, the things that kind of get in the way of that are rain and heavy clouds. If you're fishing kind of a finesse-y, passive topwater presentation. I do a lot of sight fishing certain places, and that certainly kills that. And when the water's really low, there's not a lot of current, there's not a lot of sunlight or bright light out and about. Those fish can really spread out, and it's kind of hard to calculate exactly where they're going to be. And, when you add that really technical aspect of low, clear water in there too, it's just that much easier to spook fish. So you just have to end up working really slow and really methodically through some good areas. And so that can complicate things. But when the sun's out and you have the shade and the concentrating factors working for you, it's been pretty good.
And I've got an optimistic question. I guess it kind of depends on where you are in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. But Brenner wanted to get your thoughts on your favorite patterns for when you do get the great opportunity to fish high and or stained water.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's a couple interesting little elements there. I'll say one thing that is true almost across the board is that, in the springtime, when you have fuller water tables and trees that are not necessarily, supporting leaf respiration and all that, you tend to have clearer water at higher water levels. So, in April on a given river, if you're fishing 1,000 cubic feet, 3,000 cubic feet, it's going to be significantly clearer than if you're fishing that same level in August, just because, water tends to drop out faster. It tends to muddy up, and, that's just the way it tends to be. So and especially as little rain as we've had, as low as the water table is, if we get a lot of rain, likely what'll happen is you'll have high water for a day or maybe two, but it's going to drop out pretty quick, and you're going to end up with kind of low dirty water. So, if we're just talking high, clear to, relatively clear water, my answer is usually, across the board with heavier and dirtier water, I'm going to fish bigger and usually darker, blacks and purples and blues. And jury's kind of out on chartreuse. So I'm really not sure. Anecdotally, I like to think I do better with those kind of fluorescent colors and dirtier water. But I've also done well with white. So I really think potentially it has more to do with where you're fishing the fly in the water column relative to flow. In higher water, naturally, you're going to seek out some current breaks, closer to the bank on average. And kind of a point that's smallmouth bass specific is just the fact that they're very visual feeders in general. So when you are dealing with stain, it can be tough at times, particularly in smaller watersheds where that condition tends to change pretty quickly. You can notice some really pretty dramatic just shut-offs, I think, where those fish kind of know that, okay, we can weather this storm. Things are going to change in a day, so they can kind of just, hole up for a bit and then get back to feeding, when the clarity improves a little bit. But there have also been some studies done, and I can say I've again, anecdotally kind of been able to qualify it. They show that when you have increases in flow and decreases in clarity, smallmouth tend to focus on the bottom as kind of a point of reference for feeding, as opposed to trying to make, a visual feeding fish trying to make a living in the middle of the column when there's very little visibility is just not, how it generally goes. So they're going to hunt the edges and they're going to hunt the bottom. So crayfish flies, with some weight, anything that's going to fish on the bottom or close to it, in those dark contrasty colors or things I go to, think like a black and blue claudette. That would be a fly that I would think really hard about in those kinds of conditions.
Got it. And you have any kind of preferences on rattles?
Jury's really out on rattles. I really don't think I believe in them at all.
Gotcha. And we won't go down the rat tail and talk about like propeller spinners and corkscrew tails and all that kind of good stuff.
Right. So, that's another point. Flies, really do, I think, a pretty poor job of making a lot of noise. Even a big fly rattle, is basically nothing compared to, a big, 3-4 big BBs in a jerk bait or a whipless crankbait or something like that. or a spinner bait with big Colorado blades. Fly anglers best bet at making a lot of noises on the surface. So, absolutely play around with big, like, big poppers, big deer hair bugs, kind of blockhead popper kind of stuff. That's worth messing around with if you want to stay on top water, which we do a lot in the summer. And, that might be a situation where I do lean on making a lot more noise than I would in, say, low and clear water, just because, the visual aspect is not quite as present. Those fish need to be able to find what you're throwing.
Well, there you go. And, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or DM us on social media. And if we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag. And we enter a drawing for some cool stuff from Matt at the end of the season. And I know, every time we talk, you are booking deeper and deeper into muskie season. And then occasionally I'll see a little blurb, like a cancel day here or there. You want to let folks know kind of like what you're booking and how to reach out and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah. Had quite a few schedule change-ups this summer, but thankfully I'm super thankful for all the folks I fish with. I'm usually able to fill those pretty quickly. So that's a big thank you there to everybody. But for the most part, we are looking at muskie season, which is kind of, starting like early November through the end of February, early March. And still plenty of dates there, but, a lot of my regular folks are starting to, or have for a bit now, had dates taken off, and everybody's always looking for those, quote unquote prime moon dates. Those tend to go quickest. So, there's a benefit to booking muskie dates in the middle of the summer. But, that's what we're looking at right now. So if you're interested in that or any of our, winter smallmouth fishing, that's another program that we run through the winter time. Which is kind of a unique, special deal, but it's an opportunity to catch a lot of big smallmouth in the depth of winter fishing streamers pretty actively. We're booking all that stuff right now. So feel free to reach out, if you have any questions about any of that. If you've never muskie fished and you're curious about it, have questions, or you're hesitant to book something because you don't really know what you're getting into, just shoot me some questions. I'm happy to answer all that stuff. And as you know, my contact information is on the website, which is MattReillyFlyFishing.com. And you can email, call, text, whatever you feel best doing.
Well, there you go. And folks, as I always say, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
Thanks, Marvin.